Well, today I'm with my friend Robert Brennan. He's been developing open source dev tools for 10 plus years. He's the co-creator of OpenHands, formerly known as OpenDevin. OpenHands has 250 plus contributors with 64,000 stars on GitHub. Robert's the CEO and co-founder of All-Hands AI, which is the commercial offering around OpenHands. And you folks just got some recent funding from Menlo Ventures, as well as the co-founder of Hugging Face, co-founder of Cloudera, and the creator of PyTorch. So I wanted to start out with just one question, maybe a quote of yours. You said coding is going away, but software engineering is not. Is that a good quote?
Yeah. No, I stand by that one. I think agents today, they're really good at like hammering out the individual keystrokes that are involved in writing code. But it still takes a lot of like critical thinking in order to, write great software, right? You can't just like offload all of your thinking to an agent. You can offload a lot of the toil of like getting your test to pass or fixing merge conflicts, like a lot of just like the nitty gritty stuff that doesn't involve a lot of creativity or a lot of critical thinking, which for me as I'm evolving with this tech, as my engineering practices are evolving with this tech, I'm finding I get to spend a lot more time on the fun parts of the job, which is the critical thinking and the architecting, and the creativity of figuring out what I want to build. And I just offload all that toil onto an agent.
You talked about in some of your presentations about like fully agentic AI dev tools or parallel agents all working at the same time. So how much power can that return to developers?
Yeah, I would say we still have only really scratched the surface here. If I look at, the median developer, they are probably using GitHub Copilot, maybe using Cursor or something like that as like an AI-powered IDE. I think a lot of the early adopters have adopted something like Claude Code, like a local agent, something that can run on their laptop. But right now, the paradigm is still like the developers actively focused on a task, and there's an AI somewhere on their machine, an IDE or a CLI that's helping them go a bit faster. But if I look at my own usage and I look at our power users, there's this shift that happens when you switch to using agents in the cloud and like multiple agents at once, which is that you can get a lot more done in parallel. And you get this like major lift where it's similar to the lift that I felt when I went from being an IC to being a manager. Is like suddenly I'm spending a lot more of my time figuring out what to build, breaking it down into independently achievable tasks, giving those out to agents and then, reviewing their output and getting it all merged. Again, rather than spending my time like babysitting a single agent and watching every little thing that it does and kind of micromanaging it. And I think it's a huge lift when you kind of make that shift to running parallel agents.
Well, you mentioned that you about 90% of your code is done with AI agents.
Yeah.
So how is that going?
Yeah, it's great. It's a huge lift to my productivity. I spend most of my time as a CEO these days, like in meetings and stuff like that, and it's really fun to be able to like still get some coding done by like sending off an agent, going into a meeting. The agent works in the background while I'm totally focused on the meeting, and then when the meeting's over, I come back to a pull request. I can review it. Maybe I do another turn of the loop. Something's not quite right, or I wanted the agent to go in a different direction. Sometimes it's just completely correct on the first try, and I can merge it. All the tests are passing. I can QA it. So yeah, super fun to be able to get coding done asynchronously.
And you said you can even talk to your phone and just tell it what to do on your walk home and then come back to your
Yeah.
office and check on it, right?
Yeah, my co-founder Graham loves to do this on his walk to work. He'll have an idea, he'll pull out his phone, he'll quickly like tell OpenHands what he wants to build, put away his phone, and then when he gets to his desk, like there's a PR there waiting for him to review.
Oh, to mention that, you said there's probably no way to eliminate the human element, right? So you've got to test and verify everything, right?
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I would say we're nowhere close yet to a world where these agents can like, just manage an entire software company by themselves, right? There's some cool stuff happening in like the vibe coding space where people are building like full apps end to end. But what you find is that if nobody's reviewing the code and nobody's thinking through the architecture, what happens is these little mistakes that the agents make end up compounding over time, right?
Mm.
I ask it to do, fix this bug. It ends up kind of like duplicating some code in a weird way. And if I'm not reviewing it, that gets checked in. And then the next time I ask it to like add a new feature, if it's a bug, maybe it only modifies one of those places and not the other. Now there's some weird inconsistent behavior in the app. And these errors just pile up over time, and eventually somebody ends up with this vibe coding mess. I've actually seen whole consultancies spinning up of people who are basically untangling vibe coded apps and refactoring them to make them work better.
Yeah, that seems inefficient.
Yeah, yeah,
So, I heard the word chores used, like your tool handles a lot of chores that developers don't want to do. And I think I saw, let's see, resolving merge conflicts, addressing PR feedback, fixing bugs, infrastructure changes, database migration, fixing failing tests, expanding test coverage, and building apps from scratch. So that was the list of chores that I could glean.
yeah.
Um, how many developers do you think are doing this right now in some way?
Yeah, I think a large number of developers have at the very least started to pick up these little chores as a way to get started with agents. I think it's we take kind of a crawl, walk, run strategy towards like helping
Hmm.
people get mature with these agents. And picking up those bits of toil is kind of the crawl strategy, right? So like a very common workflow for a developer is, I make my changes, I open up a pull request. I feel like it's, 80, 90% of the way there. I'm pretty ready to get it merged, but there's some tests failing or there's merge conflicts because somebody else has edited the same file, little lint errors, stuff like that. And I love to just on GitHub right there say add OpenHands fix the merge conflicts or add
Mm.
OpenHands tests. Um, and then, I can stay focused on my next tasks and OpenHand just takes away those little bits of toil that are preventing my PR from getting merged. And then the PR just magically turns green and I can merge it and not worry about it.
Hmm.
Um, and then, yeah, I would say after folks get used to those, offloading those little bits of toil to an agent, they start to get more confident and really hit this inflection point where they start to default to giving their work to an agent, which is kind of where I'm at, right? Where um, now if there's something I want to get done, I like immediately start with open hands. I try to describe the task to open hands very clearly. It goes off and works on its own. I again can stay focused on something else and then come back and review its work. Again, maybe I'll have to take a couple turns of the loop with it, push it a little bit further, but sometimes it just gets it right away and I can just merge it.
And you said that eventually you get very intuitive on what AI can do real well, and then you get used to the fact that some of it you can just throw away. So 50%, you say just it
Yeah.
worked, 50% it didn't, throw it away, start over, change the prompt, try again, no problem. That's
Yeah, I
cool.
had I had a refactor I wanted to do yesterday actually. And the first time I tried it, the PR that came out, I was like, this isn't right. Something doesn't feel right here. And I tried a second time, and we got a little bit closer, and I was like, this still feels like way too much code. Like this isn't right. And I looked at what the agent had done and realized like, oh, my mental model of the problem was a little bit wrong. So
Hmm.
I updated my own model, and then crafted a new prompt and got a perfect PR on the third try. But I just threw those first two out instead of trying to iterate on them.
Hmm. And you mentioned walk before or crawl before walking. So what's a
Yeah.
good place for developers to start if they're not really doing this yet?
Yeah, I think finding those tasks that agents are just like, they can be trusted to get right 99% of the time. So like fixing merge conflicts is a very rote task for an agent. I'd say agents actually do a better job than humans because they'll take the time to like look through the Git log and see what the original changes were intended to do. What are the new changes? What are their intention? And actually collate the two together. I think a lot of developers just kind of eyeball it and hope for the best. I think that's a great first task. Getting tests to pass also like there's a very clear definition of done for the agent there. So you can very quickly see, did it succeed at the task or not? So if there's like a couple failing tests, maybe there were some API changes, things like that. Just finding those bits of toil where it's like this is clearly a rote task. There's a clear definition of done that can validate what the agent did very easily. Those are great tasks to start with.
Where does OpenHands really shine as far as a tool for developing code?
Yeah, so we've always been kind of at the far end of agency, I would say. So there's kind of a spectrum of code gen tools out there. There are some that are very tactical, tend to live in your IDE or CLI. I think the most tactical would be like autocomplete, right?
Hmm.
Something devs are very used to, but you're still just like you're actively focused on the task. The AI is helping you go a bit faster. We're very much at the other end of the spectrum where it's like you're just giving one or two sentences of English to an agent, and then it's going to work for 5, 10, 15 minutes, sometimes even hours, execute on that task and come back to you with a fully formed solution. And I would say increasingly we're even pushing further and further out on the right side of that spectrum, trying to figure out, for these like we're working with like a number of large clients on like very, very large tech debt oriented tasks where, say you've got a giant code base in COBOL and you want to update that to Java, that's a highly automatable task, right? It's a lot of rote work, but it's not something an agent can just one shot. But if you put OpenHands into the hands of an expert human, you can get, what would be months of work done in a matter of days. And because we're open source, we're able to provide really like the nuts and bolts of how to work with these agents, and especially how to send off multiple agents in parallel, and how to get agents talking to each other. Like that's what we do best is like kind of
Mm.
that high level of agency, high parallelism, getting multiple agents working together. That's where we're really like pushing forward the art of the possible.
So you mentioned, some of your big clients and everything. What's an ideal prospect for you for a commercial offering?
Yeah. I would say our commercial partners tend to be in highly regulated industries, so a lot of finance, healthcare, insurance, things like that. They tend to be on the larger side, although I would say anywhere from like companies with like 50 developers to 50,000 developers are good for us. We do have some smaller clients too who just kind of self-service through our SaaS product.
Hmm.
So it's a pretty wide range, but I would say increasingly we're orienting towards large, highly regulated industries.
Why highly regulated?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the fact that we're open source makes it much easier for them to get started. They have permission to pick up an open source project and try it out without having to go through like vendor onboarding. They have that data sovereignty, right? They control what LLM is getting used. All the data stays within their environment. They're not sending anything out to a SaaS. The fact that we can like take our cloud offering and deploy that entirely inside of their VPC, we can connect to Bedrock or a self-hosted model, et cetera, makes it a much more compelling like compliance and security story than some of these big products that force you to throw your code and your data into somebody
Mm,
else's servers.
got it. Does the MIT certification of any kind help that?
Yeah, the MIT license is really like one of the most permissive software licenses out there. It means you can use it however you want, commercially, non-commercially. You can modify the code without having to give it back. So yeah, that MIT license makes it really easy for folks to get started with.
Got it. Okay. So what's the best way to engage with your company?
Yeah, I mean the easiest thing is to go check out the open source. You can download it, run it, use it, without talking to anybody. There's also a contact form on our GitHub README. You're welcome to get in touch with us at contact@allhands.dev. We would love to talk to folks who are using it or interested in using it and hear about their use case.
Cool. Any exciting news for you on the horizon?
Yeah, we're in the middle of launching our SDK, which is a Python library that can be used to run agents either locally or in the cloud. You can sandbox them using Docker or run them directly on your laptop, or run them inside of a Kubernetes cluster. Super, super fun to play with. We're already using it inside of our CLI. V1 of the CLI actually shipped today, and it'll be part of our core web app experience pretty soon as well.
So as far as the most used tool like this in the market, where do you guys fit in? I know it's one of the top 10 tools, or are you the top, or where would you stand?
Yeah, I would say we're in the top 10. I think the favorite today is Claude Code. I
Hmm.
think what's tricky in this market is there's a new cool tool every like 3 to 6 months, and developers seem to be kind of hopping between them. And there is like a path of evolution here, right? Everybody started with GitHub Copilot, like that was the cool thing that everybody was adopting. Then everybody jumped over to Cursor. They were like, oh no, this is the new thing. This is the amazing thing, is an AI-powered IDE. And then Claude Code came out, and everybody switched from Cursor to Claude Code, saying, okay, CLIs are the new hot thing. We think the next leap is going to be to cloud-based agents, agents that run in the cloud,
Hmm.
have their own developer environment, totally sandboxed away from everything else. And so that's where we live. So we think that the
Hmm.
next step in evolution is going to have people shifting towards open hands.
Well, this has been great talking to you, and I'm looking forward to watching the growth and seeing the next evolution and how you guys were part of it.
Yeah, appreciate it.